Hour number 2 of Orange Nation underway. Artist of the day, The Cure. Tim Leonard joins us.
Yes, he does. We're going to talk some SU lacrosse with Tim.
But before we do, I heard he was a fan of one of my segment ideas.
Yeah. I did not know there was ever a McPizza, though.
There was McSpaghetti, McPizza.
What are you talking about?
There was McSpaghetti?
Yes, McPasta, I believe they called it. So I saw that the third-string quarterback at Syracuse's name was McPhail, and I wanted to do the McPhail, what the biggest McPhail was, and it was clearly snack wraps, getting snack wraps off of. But there's a lot of them. McPizza was terrible.
Never heard of McPizza or McPasta.
You didn't hear the McDLT either.
I didn't.
Okay, so the McDLT was the hot side of the hamburger on this side. It was horrible for the environment. So it was the hot side of the burger was on this side of the styrofoam container, and then they had another styrofoam container with a cold side. So you open it up, and your lettuce wouldn't be wilted and all that other stuff. Your mayo wouldn't be hot.
I have no comment on any of this. I didn't know that this many McDonald's fails were out there, I guess.
There's a lot of McFails.
And there was actually pizza.
Yeah.
Like that was the thing. When was that?
When you do the interview, I'm going to Google the biggest fails in McDonald's history.
I didn't.
You know why they got rid of it? Because it took too long to make. And it hurt the fast food part of it.
They were launched in the mid-1980s and discontinued in 2000. How did I never hear of this?
That's a long time.
That is a long time.
It took too long to make them. They're available at one location as of this day still, McPizza.
And what was the other thing you said? McPasta?
Yeah. It was either McPasta or McSpaghetti.
McSpaghetti. Introduced in the early 1970s. Okay. Discontinued in 1980. So, all right. That's why I never heard of it. That does not look appetizing at all, Tim. I don't know if you saw the picture, but it was just.
I don't even have to see the picture, but I did.
Oh, yeah. Here, it's just. That looks like a bad high school lunch.
I don't know what you're expecting out of McDonald's.
I guess.
Like a gourmet pasta dish. Okay. Let's talk lacrosse. I'll Google the biggest.
My mind is blown right now that there was a McPizza. Where was I for 20 years? I had no idea. All right, so I guess let's start with the Duke game on Saturday. We knew it was a must-win situation. We knew it was going to be a tall task, right, going on the road to face arguably the best team in the country. Game of runs. Both teams went on runs, and Syracuse, unfortunately, came up short.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't too surprising. I do think, and Kyle and I said this after the game, that was probably the best half they played of lacrosse all season, was that second half. I guess you could argue that it's a little bit easier to play well when you're down by 6 going into a fourth quarter, but they scored 4 goals right away to start the fourth quarter. There was a lot of momentum on their side, and you started to think for a second that maybe they can pull this off. Maybe they're going to dig deep and shock Duke here, and that's how lacrosse works sometimes when you get the face-offs and you get the hot hand at the face-off position. And Syracuse hasn't really had that all season, but Johnny Rachusa was winning like every face-off at the start of the fourth quarter, and it was great to see for him personally, someone that has been kind of fighting that all throughout the season, working hard. They've been trying to get some results at the face-off X, and that'll be a big talking point in the offseason that he made some progress, and they got the possessions to tilt in their favor in the second half, and they blew some chances, I think, to really make it interesting down the stretch. But overall, I thought they played a very solid game against Duke. Duke's one of the teams that is going to be right up there in the national title conversation, and they played them tight in both games this year, which is encouraging.
All right, so as you said, you look at the offseason now. Let's go through the comings and goings. And the portal is a whole different animal, and there might be a surprise here or there, somebody who leaves that you're not expecting. But in terms of the guys who are out of eligibility and the guys who are going to be coming into the program as freshmen, who are the biggest losses in terms of, the Griffin Cooks of the world that are, out of eligibility, Cole Kirst? Take us through that.
That's really 2 of 3 names that come to mind for me. Alex Simmons is another one. That's 3 guys on offense. If you think about the top 9 on offense, so the 2 midfield lines and the starting attack line, that's 3 guys that are not going to be back next season. And I do think Cole Kirst is a big loss because he provided sort of a different dynamic to the offense. And now you've got an attack spot to fill. And There will be conversations about, do you slide Finn Thompson down from midfield to attack because that was his natural position in high school, and I think that's definitely worth considering. But as far as guys that are leaving, I mean, everyone could be back on defense in terms of polls. There's going to be a couple short stick defensive midfielders that are likely out of eligibility and will opt to, end their college career. But Will Mark will probably return, and he's probably going to be a first-team All-American goalie, if not second-team All-American goalie. And the offense, we'll see what they add in the transfer portal, but it seems like basically they're just going to kind of return what they had, and they'll lose Alex Simmons, Cole Kirsten, Griffin Cook, which it's tough, but everyone else is hopefully going to take a step up, and I think it should be, on paper, one of the better offenses in the country going into next season.
We talk so much about the freshman class, and we'll get into this a little bit tonight on the television version of Orange Nation. But I brought this up to you last week in terms of how many goals were scored and how many were either scored or assisted on by freshmen. This past week against Duke, 15 goals scored, 11 of them either scored or assisted on by freshmen. Wow. The future is bright for this program, and they've got more freshmen obviously coming in. Who are some of the names we should be on the lookout for when it comes to this next recruiting class?
So this class isn't wildly good or anything, but it doesn't really have to be because all these guys are returning. I think it was probably harder for them to get as many good recruits, but Trey Dreer is one guy who is a 5-star freshman attacker, kind of an inside finisher type that maybe will be in the conversation to play right away. They've got a couple face-off specialists potentially that could impact. Johnny Mullen is one who's rated pretty highly, and I've heard some good things about him. And then one of Joey Spallina's 2 twin brothers that have committed next season, Jake Spallina, he's kind of a do-it-all type of player, but he does take face-offs in high school right now, and that's one of his better skills. So we'll see if they use him in that capacity. The other twin brother is a long-stick midfielder, Brett Spallina, who I think has potential to maybe play, but obviously they're not rated quite as high as Joey was. He was the number 1 recruit in the country. So it's not like this recruiting class is going to wow you, but I will add that Riley Figueres is basically a recruit next year at this point because he missed all of this season and was one of the better close defenders in this past class, a 5-star recruit. So if he's going to be healthy and ready to go next year, you're basically inserting another guy that's kind of like a freshman recruit that could really make an impact right away as one of your starting close defenders. You mentioned face-offs are going to be a hot topic of discussion in the offseason. As you look at the transfer portal, is that the main thing that they would be targeting in the portal, is to find a face-off guy, or is it something else? I think it's definitely face-offs. I think if they get a face-off guy that is top 20 in the nation, and you're looking at a team that's getting it at 55, 56% of the time, like a slightly above average mark, you're probably a top 10 team next year at this point. And that's how valuable it'll be to get that. And whether it's getting better production from the guys that are hopefully returning, whether it's getting some production from those freshmen I mentioned, but I think it would be good to see them get someone from the portal that has experience, that has done it at the college level before and has been successful, because that was the thing that was holding them back. And then the other thing I'll add is the short stick defensive midfield position is definitely still a question mark. And I think really you could say defense overall, it's not as much of a question mark as it was 2 seasons ago, but they finished 48th in defensive efficiency this year. They're basically bringing everyone back, so you're just kind of hoping that some of these guys take a step up and they're playing more of their natural positions and things sort of fall into place. And you add Riley Figueres, and Billy Juwan's going to be a year older, and all those things might make for a little bit more of an improvement. But I think short stick defensive midfield, you would like to see them add maybe 1 or 2 guys in the transfer portal in that area as well. All right, last one for you. We're going to have Rick Beardsley come on here in about 10, 15 minutes from now, and I can picture his answer to this question about whether or not this is a success. I mean, he played here at a time when the standard was a lot different, and I know the alums hold this program to a little bit of a different standard. But I do want to ask you, and I've asked you this before, but now that the season is over, was this season a success? What do you take away from this season for Syracuse lacrosse? More positives or more negatives? I lean towards it was a success, and I say that because I feel much better about where the program is at going into next year than I did after last year, I guess. They took a big step this year. Now, I also hear when Rick Beardsley or a former player say, you can't say it's a success if they don't make the postseason. I think that's very fair. it's a different time period for college lacrosse now where there's just a lot of really good teams out there. There's more parity, and I think you have to factor that into the equation when you're talking about how this compares to, historically speaking, how Syracuse lacrosse does. I'll say this, though, about next year. I think the expectations are relatively pretty high going into next year, and I think the run on sort of the rebuilding timetable is going to come. Like, there will be some obvious frustration if they do not make the tournament next year. I think you can't come on here and say it's a successful season, honestly, if they probably don't win a tournament game next year. I think that should be the expectation, because if they get the transfer portal to go their way and if they fill some of these holes, the face-off being the biggest one, we're talking about a team that I think could be top 12, top 10 in the nation in the preseason. And you have one of the best goalies in the country, and you have one of the best offenses in the country, and hopefully that's good enough to kind of chip away and win a couple more games in the ACC. So the sixth season was probably a success this year, I would say, but I think next year is when it becomes, okay, we got to see some real progress, and the expectations need to be raised.
Expectations will be ramped up next year. All right, Tim, I look forward to hearing from you tonight on the television version of Orange Nation, 7 to 7:30 on News Channel 9.
You ready for this? Here's the ones that I know. The Mighty Wings was a McPhail. Salad Shakers, you remember those? They came in like you know how you get a Dunkin' with a cone on the cup, kind of has like a top on it that bubbles up so it goes over the whipped cream. You would squirt the dressing in and then shake the salad in the salad cup. Salad Shaker.
Who thought that was a good idea?
I guess they were just throwing stuff at the wall.
The McLobster, the McDLT, which I said.
Have you ever had lobster at McDonald's before?
Onion nuggets, which
like
I have never heard of. Onion nuggets, which are basically onion rings, except for they're just deep fried chunks of onion. McSpaghetti, McCrab, I never heard of that one. The McHot Dog, that was an early 80s thing, I'm guessing. This one's the weirdest one, the Hula Burger.
Oh,
in the early 1960s, founder Ray Kroc wanted a burger for Catholics to eat at Lent, which was just cheese on a piece of pineapple and a bun. The McPizza, and we wrap things up with the Arch Deluxe.
Shocking that none of these things made it.
Yeah. What did make it? The McRib? I guess that stayed around.
Barely around.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, McDonald's is still humming along, so maybe there's something to be said for just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
I guess. Some of those experimental things did not work well. I still can't believe there was a pizza that you could order for 20 years and I had no idea. Yeah, and that was like when I was a kid, too.
If somebody ordered a pizza in front of you in line, you just had to stand there and wait because it took 15 minutes for the damn pizza. Get out of the way.
That would explain why
it's like someone
it didn't make
it would be like being behind Steve in the grocery store and he's writing a check.
I don't write a check that often. Once in a while. All right, we're out of time with Tim. We're going to take a timeout here. Rick Beardsley coming up in about 10 minutes. Back after this on ESPN Radio.